For the iPad 3, we're going to be repairing the front glass. We always wear gloves for these, as there are shattered pieces of glass that could cut you easily, and we also wear eye protection for the repair. These 4 tools are included in the screen repair kit, which you can find links to purchase these in the description below. We're going to go ahead and get started here.
The first step is make sure you're safe. Use gloves and eye protection during this whole repair process. Step 2, which we're starting on now, is definitely the most difficult part of the repair. It takes a long time and you'll need to be patient. We're using a common hair dryer to loosen the adhesive under the screen, but you can also use a heat gun if you have one. You'll need to heat up about 4 to 5 inches of the screen at a time, and then use a metal opening tool, which comes with our repair kit, to separate it from the frame. To the right of the home button, underneath the glass, is a very fragile Wi-Fi antenna. It's important that you keep the tool shallow here. The tip should only go in about 1/8 of an inch, or you could damage that antenna. Now once you're past the home button here, you can push that tool in quite a bit further, and there's nothing here that you can damage unless you have the 4th generation iPad. The home button cables actually run along there. For this screen removal process, you'll notice we're using our metal tool. This is the tool that comes with our screen repair kit, but we actually highly recommend a tool called the iSesamo for this step. You can find links for this and other resources in the description below. On this side of the iPad, you're going to want to keep the tool pretty shallow, maybe 1/4 of an inch here instead of 1/8. There's just not as much adhesive. You don't need to have the tool that far under. Now we're approaching the top left corner of the iPad, and you can see we've just kind of stuck the tool up there. We're going to heat up the top portion of the screen first, but we're showing the 2 antennas that are right underneath the glass. If you have the 3G or 4G models of the iPad, the Wi-Fi only version does not have this. But we basically pried up the glass just enough to see inside there, to see where that antenna is, and stick the metal tool between the antenna and the glass. That way the antennas don't stick to the back of the glass and come up with the iPad. The top right corner where we're working now used to be a real danger zone in the iPad 2. There were cables running along here that were super easy to cut. But on the iPad 3 it looks like they fixed that, which is really awesome. If you're running into lots of small pieces of glass like we are here, you'll want to, before you even start the repair, cover the front screen in clear packing tape. That'll hold the glass together as you're peeling it up from the frame. Now notice here how we're actually just peeking in the glass just enough to see where that Wi-Fi antenna is, and make sure that that's not sticking to the back of the glass before we lift up on the panel. You want to open the glass from right to left like you're opening the cover of a book. The next step would normally be to remove the LCD from the frame, but I actually like to keep the LCD cable connected for the whole repair. So right now we're skipping steps 3 and 4 and going straight to step 5. Removal of the home button assembly. As you can see, we are removing the pieces of the home button assembly one at a time. Starting with the home button bridge, you will need to use the metal opening tool to loosen the adhesive under each piece. I also recommend that you heat up the glass on the other side of the home button first. Moving to step 6, we're going to do the same thing with the front-facing camera bracket. Now we are going back to do step 4, disconnect the digitizer ribbon cable. But before we do that, we need to remove the 4 Phillips head screws that hold the LCD to the frame. Next, take your plastic opening tool and carefully pry up the LCD from the bottom middle. It should take very little force for the LCD to start to come up. Now open the LCD from right to left, but stop halfway with the LCD at a 90-degree angle to the frame. Now we are able to get access to the digitizer cable and disconnect it from the logic board. After freeing the cable from its recessed position in the frame, you can peel away the black piece of tape that goes across both connectors on the board. Next, you will need to carefully flip open the 2 small black tabs that lock the digitizer cable to the connectors on the logic board. Make sure you use the plastic opening tool for this. Now you can slide the cable out of the connectors. This should only take a moderate amount of force. Just make sure the small black flaps are in the upright position. Next, we will be installing the front-facing camera bracket on the new screen. This step is pretty simple. Just make sure the larger hole in the middle of the bracket is centered around the camera hole on the back side of the new screen. On to the home button assembly. Start with the actual home button. Make sure the small metal frame with the adhesive on it rests below the home button hole. Then check from the front side of the screen to make sure the home button is level. Now you'll need to grab the home button bridge. Make sure there is enough adhesive on both sides. If the adhesive covers only 50% or less of the surface, go ahead and scrape off what remains of the old adhesive, then use the 2 small strips of adhesive that are already cut for this purpose. These adhesive strips are included with our screen repair kit that you can find in the links below. We have skipped steps 7 and 8 in this video for the sake of time, but you can read about these steps in our iPad 3 screen repair guide that we link to below. On to step 9. Connect the new digitizer ribbon cable to the logic board. Start by lining up the new screen along the left side of the frame. Now lift up on the LCD so that you can slide the digitizer cable into position. Once you have it lined up properly, you can slide the cable into the 2 connectors on the logic board. First, make sure though that the small black flaps are still in the upright position before inserting the cable. Getting this cable to slide into the connector can take some time. If you do use a tool to push in the cable, make sure it is plastic, not metal. We don't show this on camera, but if you are having trouble, use a piece of tape to grip the top of the ribbon cable and then carefully pull the cable into the connector. Once the cable is firmly in place, you'll notice that the dotted line is flush against the edge of both connectors. Then you can flip the small black flaps to the down and lock position. Next, you'll want to return that black piece of tape to its position along the 2 connectors on the logic board. Now you can run the cable along the recessed portion of the frame. If there is any adhesive on the underside of the cable, go ahead and peel away the plastic strips that cover the adhesive before placing the cable in position. On to step 10. Reinstall the LCD. Go ahead and return the LCD back to its position in the frame. Then screw in the 2 Phillips head screws into the top 2 corners of the LCD frame. Be careful during this whole repair not to touch the front of the LCD with your fingers. The LCD is very difficult to clean. Now we can start with step 11. Dry fit and test the new screen. Don't take the plastic covering off any of the adhesive strips yet. We are just going to set the screen in the frame so we can test it before sealing the iPad back up. If you notice that any of the corners don't fit the new screen properly, you'll want to take a look at step 7 of our iPad 3 screen repair guide for steps on how to fix this. Next, you'll want to test the touchscreen. You can see how we use the virtual keyboard to test the functionality of every key multiple times. You can also use a drawing app from the App Store to thoroughly test every part of the screen. If you run into issues with sections of the screen not working properly, you may have forgotten to lock the small black flaps back in step 9, or it's also possible that the cable isn't inserted all the way into the connectors. Either way, you'll need to go back and reinstall the digitizer cable and also do a hard reset before testing again. If everything tested fine for you, then you can move on to step 12. Install the screen. Start by removing the plastic that covers each strip of adhesive. Be careful not to scratch the back of the screen while doing this. I recommend using a plastic pry tool instead of the metal tool that we accidentally used in this video. Now comes the tricky part. You will need to lift up the bottom of the LCD to make sure the digitizer cable fits down properly under the LCD. This is why we left the 2 bottom LCD screws out until now. You can go ahead and install these 2 screws after you see that that cable is fitting down properly under the LCD. After installing the 2 screws with the screen still in the upright position, now we are going to watch that cable to make sure it doesn't fold over itself. It needs to slide all the way into the gap between the LCD. Spend lots of time on this step if needed. The cable cannot be folded onto itself so that it forms a crease. This will most likely cause the touchscreen to not work properly, or it could cause the screen to pop up in that corner over time. Once everything fits into place though, you can go ahead and finally seal your iPad up. Just make sure there aren't any dust particles under the screen before you press the glass all the way down. For more iPad repair info, check us out at iPadscreenrepair.com. But before you go, leave us a comment. What did you think of the repair? Post your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you next time.